Hello once again, world, and welcome to episode 10 of The Top Split. I'm your host, Alex McKellar, and today I'm back after a really long hiatus, longer than I ever expected it to be. Without diving into any particular deep analysis of it, my take on podcasting beyond the technicalities of making and building something to be quote-unquote successful in the podcast world is that, look, in my opinion, podcasting is one of those fantastic parts of the new media like YouTube and Twitch, where technology has given every person a voice to speak to anyone that would want to hear it across the globe. For me, I think it's kind of important that when you use that voice, you actually have something in mind to say, and hopefully that it's somewhat meaningful. Perhaps the main reason I put the Top Split podcast on hold for a while is that I didn't have anything clear in my mind that I was committed to sharing. But over the last month or so, I've had a few things pop into my head that I thought would be good to get out into the ether, as it were, and this episode is the first one of those to see the light of day. Thank you to the people that have shown an interest in the podcast. As recently as last week, I was in a skippy race, and someone said, "Is that the Alex McKellar from the Top Split podcast? I love that show. Can you talk about such and such next time?" Those sort of interactions are really encouraging for me. Believe it or not, even the messages I get about when's the next episode coming out, they're also great. To me, it means that even though the following is small, it's something that people have enjoyed. And importantly, it's something that I've enjoyed too. So we're back. I've plans for a few more episodes in mind, so all going to plan, there'll be some more on the way soon. For today, my guest was Brian Sheridan. Shero is the heart and soul of an online sim racing club called the Friday Night Race Club, or FNRC. In iRacing terms, it's a league. As the name suggests, it's predominantly run on a Friday night, with some great racing on Saturday nights coming into play in recent times as well. When it comes to clubs or leagues like these, though, whether it be in sim racing or any other pursuit, sporting, cultural, or anything else really, there's always someone or someones behind the scenes working tirelessly towards the betterment of the group activities and those that enjoy them. Sometimes they get thanks and it's appreciated, I'm sure. However, there are no doubt hours upon hours that go in behind the scenes that no one sees or sometimes even knows about. I've witnessed it, and look, I've even done some of it myself at different times. These sorts of groups cannot exist without these people, and it's why I say they are the heart and soul. For FNRC, that's Shero. Today, we discussed all sorts of things around FNRC and a little bit more, including what this kind of group can be like for people beyond the fun on the track and what it can mean to them. So for now, I give you Shero, Mr. Brian Sheridan. All right, everyone, I'd like to welcome, after such a long hiatus, my guest today. He's the big boss, the head honcho, the patriarch and the main man behind the scenes of the Friday Night Race Club, Mr. Brian Sheridan. Welcome, Shero.
Cheers, Alex. Thanks for having me. That was a big build-up, mate.
Yeah, well, nothing too big for the big man himself. So, as I said, you're the mountain mover, as it were, in the background of FNRC, the Friday Night Race Club. I'll say it a few times so people know what I mean when I say FNRC. I'm guessing you've been there from the start. Can you tell us a bit about what the FNRC is and where it all started?
Yeah, sure. Basically, I mean, and me being the mountain there, I'm probably more so the glue that sticks everything together. I'm the ideas man, and there's a lot of guys that behind the scenes that help me, and I'll go in to thank them a bit later on. But yeah, basically, FNRC started when I got diagnosed with a tumour in my neck, a cancerous tumour, back in 2004, I think it was now, and I decided that I was going to take as much stress out of my life and relax as much as I could. So I bought myself one of the original Xboxes and jumped online and found some racing games. I think Project Gotham Racing 3, I think PGR 3
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
was the game at the time, and jumped on there, got myself a headset, and started racing online, and found that people just were so aggro and angry at everybody. I thought, this is not what I did this for. I decided to have a go at some fun, and I thought there's got to be a better way. So FNRC was born from that, really. I just decided to put together a group and get a few mates together, and Jeff Dean was number one. He was the guy that I affectionately call Mother in FNRC, is because he's the mother of FNRC, because he was the second member and still is there 14 years later. So, but him and I basically put it together and got onto grabbing a few mates and just getting in to have some fun races. And we've had some ups and downs over the 14 years, but we're still going and sort of expanding fairly strongly at the moment.
Yeah, that's great, mate. It's a great story, and out of hardship comes a great thing, right? And I'm keen to know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm keen to know, since you brought it up, Xbox. Did you start with a controller or a wheel?
Yeah, controller. I had, and they were wired controllers back then on the
Yeah.
original Xbox, and if you wanted to play multiplayer at home, you had to have expansion cables and double Xboxes and two sets of games, and it was crazy stuff back then. It was all right in the early days, and Xbox Live was really, really young. And in fact, whenever I ring Xbox Live these days and they ask for my gamer tag, and I say Shero, and they go, yeah, and I'm like, no, it's just Shero. They just like, are you serious? I go, yeah, I've had it for 14 years. Yep, it was the original Shero. There's
So,
nothing else after it.
so you're saying that when you're racing with guys, that it could have been in your house as much as anything, or was it was it all live based and online even at that stage?
Yeah, when I started, we had four Xboxes connected up in a house, and we were racing like that just to keep the lunatics out of our races, basically. And then once we got online, we just started picking guys up here and there. And I mean, you know yourself, there's a lot of guys out there that'll jump in that are very major hotheads, and
Yep. Yep.
it takes a while to sort of go through the group and weed them out and get back to a bunch of guys that are just there for the fun. But we just be as strict as we can and try and keep it like that.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Now, the motto is just for fun, with no aggro, no fame, just fun and glory. Someone who's recently joined FNRC, it's been a few months now for me. I know, I've got to tell you, I found it a surprisingly refreshing experience. I say surprising because it wasn't until I'd been racing with you guys on a Friday night that I realised how, I guess, stressful the official racing at iRacing can be.
Yeah.
Given the openly expressed, I guess, principles of FNRC, I'm guessing that they were a reaction to what we do see in the online racing world at times.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's still like that, as you know. If you jump into officials, there are still people in there that really shouldn't be in there. And every time I hear someone screaming through their mic, I think, but why are you here? I mean, didn't you sit down to have a go at this to enjoy yourself and relax? Yeah, it just defeats the whole purpose as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't want to give people the wrong impression, those that might be listening, but joining FNRC has been, like I said, a surprisingly refreshing thing for my sim racing experience on iRacing. I mean, previously I was doing, somewhere between 4 and 20 official races in a week, predominantly in the Skip Barber series, with some other cars thrown in for good measure here and there. But since joining FNRC, I reckon I'm doing maybe 4 to 6 and some weeks none at all, just rocking up and getting my fix on a Friday and Saturday nights with FNRC. Now, I've got some ideas what that might be about in my case, but I'll start by asking you, Sher, do you see that sort of reaction a bit? I mean, people in FNRC racing less officials, and what about you? I know FNRC must keep you busy, but do you race many official series races?
Actually, this season and last season, I didn't race an official at all. I've been a member of iRacing now for just over a year, I think about 13 months.
Yeah.
And when I first started, I was racing officials every season, and it's as I've wound up FNRC more, I've wound the officials down, and the same as you. So I'm now just pretty much Friday, Saturday, Sunday with FNRC is all my racing and practice sessions through the week, or that's about it. Testing.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, I don't want to give people the wrong impression. I really enjoy official racing. Can I tell you though that
Yeah,
there was a really massive moment for me that really sort of triggered in my mind as a I don't know a critical point in my thinking. I went back after not doing official races for a few weeks, and I hopped back in the Skippy. It was at Phillip Island, a track that I really enjoy, and the Skippy's not blindingly fast there, but it's good fun. And the first race I did, I felt like, I don't know, cold water shock treatment or something. Everyone was, the side-by-side racing that we all love so much. It was just so intense, and everyone was in and cutthroat and all the rest of it. And I mean, the racing in FNRC is great, but like it was just, I don't know, it just felt like a different culture almost,
Yeah, definitely. And look, as you say, we don't want to give people the wrong idea. iRacing is all about simulation, serious racing for people who want to get in there and go hard. And that's what you'll come across, and you find that everybody's passionate about their sport, which is why they do it in the first place.
Absolutely.
You don't expect people to back off and let you go, and they were going to drive as hard as they can side by side and see if they can maintain their spot, and accidents happen and people get a little bit hot under the collar and sometimes say things they regret. So I don't have a problem with iRacing itself. Some of the people there just need to sort of chill a bit and relax. But I've had some fantastic official races.
Yeah.
Some cases, you've heard me call cold tyres before every race, and I do it in the officials too, mate. And sometimes it actually works really well. I've had races where we've got to the end and guys have said, "Hey, Brian Sheridan, thank you very much for opening your mouth, mate. We had a fantastic race. Everybody took it easy on the first lap, and that was the best first lap race I've had all day." And I'm like, well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's other times where people don't pay any attention and just go stupid. But yeah, I've had some really, really great official races, which is where I met all you guys from in the first place.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the official series are great. There's some great communities built around some of the series, and some of the quieter series. Each one will tell you they got the best community in iRacing, and to them they probably do.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and for me, I took a break from what I had been doing with official races over Christmas. Took a break from Monday Night Lights broadcasting on RRTV for that season as well, just gone. And during that time, I kind of fell into FNRC, and I got my racing fix and a few more things as well out of it, I have to say. And I've been, wanting to branch out and race in other categories for a while. And I mean, I've dabbled in Pro Mazda, which is a car that I love to drive. A bit of GT,
great car.
Yeah, fantastic, and the GT3s and the GTEs. But I found myself, this is kind of the mindset thing. I found myself shying away from doing more of those because of the old I-rating ego monster, right? That number that hangs over our head. And I like to think of myself as not carrying the biggest ego going around, but having that number hanging over your head in those races adds a heap of stuff in your mind, right? When you're lining up on the grid, it adds excitement, adrenaline, anxiety, and perhaps most of all a bit of that ego thrown in. And that's probably me hyper analyzing it or whatever. And to be honest, the IR ego monster kept me away from racing in a broader range of cars, but then I find myself falling into FNRC on a Friday night, and lo and behold, we got 5 different cars, 5 different tracks each week. I get to pull out those cars that I've never raced or I haven't, raced in ages, because there are some cars you just can't get official races in our time zone. On top of that, you got Saturdays. You get a 32-lap mini enduro with pit stops and safety cars and the chaos, and it's a Bathurst. Again in a different car each week. It's like a kid pulling out their favourite toys each week with a bunch of mates and letting loose, mate.
At the greatest track in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So, I want to ask you, mate, the format. How did you come up with that? Was it something you did prior to moving to iRacing, or was it something that this was sort of born out of what iRacing has to offer in terms of their setups and things like that?
Yeah, it was actually a complete and utter accident, Alex. I was putting up just impromptu races on Saturday evenings if I was bored and at home. I thought, oh, well, I'll throw up an iRacing session, and we were getting 12, maybe 13 on a good night, maybe 16 people. And I actually thought that Saturday nights were dead on iRacing. I thought everybody was out partying
Yeah, yeah,
and they were home on Fridays but gone on Saturdays. And
yeah.
I thought, oh, this is pretty quiet. And then one Saturday afternoon, I went, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put up a street stock race at Bathurst.
Yeah.
And we had 44. We filled the server, mate. There was
Wow.
44 cars turned up, and I went, "Are you serious? There's
Yeah.
44 guys here from 12 last week." So I thought, why don't we try something different next weekend and see what happens? And we got 56 guys the next week
Oh,
in
wow.
I think we went the pickups or something,
Yep, yep.
and I opened all 62 pit bays. Sorry, the second week, and we got 56 guys. And then the third week, we had 62 guys, and I had probably 15 text messages from people saying, "I can't get in. I can't get in."
That was the GT3s, wasn't it?
I think it was the GTs. Yeah, that was
Mate,
just
I remember the server was full after like 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it amazed me. I realised then that there was something there. I was like, well, this could be a great series.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe we could get some money into the series as well. And
Yeah.
that's where Central Coast Subaru and Paul Nichols, our main sponsor,
Yeah.
came in, and he said, Shero, how about I'll put up some Subaru branded products for prizes, and I'll throw some money in for the servers and stuff. And I said, yeah, and Bathurst 200 was born from there.
Yeah, that's brilliant, mate. And you know, Nico and his team have been fantastic in supporting the series, and I know I've, benefited from that. And I won one of those prize packs, and I still brandish. I've got the hat in my hand right now, mate.
Yeah,
hangs on
right,
it hangs on the side of the sim, and I pull it out on a. It'll be better in winter, I have to admit. But
yeah.
but Friday nights too, mate. You've got the 5 different cars, and it's the variety that does it, mate. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, that all came from the beginning of FNRC, which is what we did on Xbox with Project Gotham Racing, and then we switched when Forza 1 came out. We switched over to that, and I did the same thing. We'd start with some slower cars, either D class, E class, whatever it might have been on Forza at the time, and work our way up through to A or S class cars towards the end of the night.
Yep.
And I'd just run a season like that, and then switch them over every 12 weeks or so. We'd just switch to 5 different cars, and we ran fixed setups always on Forza too, so that the guys could just hop in and drive and not have to worry about anything.
Yep.
And the racing was always fairly close. So when I moved over to iRacing, we'd been through Project Cars, Assetto Corsa, and I wasn't sure. And then Michael Hammond, actually, from Laser Racing,
Yep.
I'd known him from the Forza days, and he kept saying to me, come to iRacing. And yeah, I'll have a look at it. And I looked at it a couple of times and looked at the costs involved and went, oh, yeah, I don't know if that's going to work, because we've got guys that it means the other guys have got to try and pay a lot more money to run, where with Forza, for instance, you purchase the game and you own it. You own all the contents purchased with in-game credits, and it doesn't cost anybody. Although Jeff Dean used to complain about spending in-game credits in Forza too. I've never met anybody like him, but anyway, so that's sort of how it all progressed from there.
Yeah, I was going to say that the transition to iRacing, has that made things easier with this? I know there was a bit of a learning curve at the start, and I saw a bit of that when you were doing the Bathurst races.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, has that been smooth for you? And do you think, how does the driving compare on iRacing compared to some of the other ones you've used?
Yeah, look, Assetto Corsa and Project Cars were quite good.
Yeah.
Forza, no comparison. And I remember Mikey Hammond saying to me when I finally came to iRacing, he said, tell the boys on Xbox you won't see them for a few months. And I said,
okay.
Why? And he said, I'm telling you, mate, once you start iRacing, you won't go back. And he was dead right. Within 2 weeks, I said, you know what? I haven't been near my Xbox. I haven't switched it on, and I haven't stopped iRacing. And he said, I told you. And I've never looked back. And the transition was a bit difficult, due to the parameters you've got to set on servers and things. It's much simpler in Forza or Project Cars or something. But the advantage you've got is that you've got so much more to play with here, and it's so much more realistic. And look, it's second to none in my opinion. iRacing is the number one sim on the market, and I wouldn't switch for anything else. To me is a game.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, for mine, I'd love them to think about upgrading the graphics engine or the engine behind it. I don't know. I'm not a developer, so I don't know, how that's going to impact the physics and all the rest of it. I'm sure it would, but it's been going for over a decade. They're squeezing everything out of that engine that they can. I look at some of those big events that they've had trouble with recently, and pleasingly, I had a little bit of a taste of it, I guess, when I did the 24-hour with a few of the top split guys, and we were affected by a dropout or two or whatever. But I wish they'd maybe. I know it'd be a massive undertaking, and I've spoken to it to some of the guys, even on my stream, about what it would cost them, and I don't know if they could manage it, but that's the only thing holding it back for me is that the engine. But in terms of the experience that you get overall, it's hard to beat. I agree with you.
Yeah, definitely. And look, what you say is right, and it's got to happen eventually. You can't just keep going on the same game engine for 2 decades, can you? So it's got to happen eventually, but it's whether they're smart enough to have been preparing for that for the last year or so or 2 years and get ready to do it or not.
Yeah, you're right, mate. I reckon that it'd be. I thought about it a lot at different times, and just imagining as a company or as an organisation, the undertaking that it would be to sort of bin a viable thing that you've got. Although it's viability is starting to sort of come into question a bit more, I guess, as time passes, and then what it would cost them to redevelop it'd be. Yeah. Anyway. Now, before I spoke a little bit about having my mindset changed, and a bit of surprising change it was when I started in FNRC, and it was positive and refreshing, as I said. Now, I will say it took me a few sessions after having my official series brain on,
yep.
right? It took me a while to adjust my attitude to it. I'm not the most aggressive or hyper competitive driver, but like everyone, I guess I race to get the best result I can. And ultimately, if I can win, great, fantastic, that'd be great. I know I found myself in the first Bathurst race that I did. I think it might have been the trucks. I can't remember. I got a bit frazzled by the safety car. I don't know if you remember, and how I thought I'd lose the result I was getting. I don't think I was going to win or anything, but by running out of fuel. I didn't burn the airwaves down, as I remember a few people did at different times with what I said, but certainly I expressed some anxiety over the radio, and in hindsight, it was because I didn't know how the safety car worked from memory, and I think it was the first time you'd run a Bathurst 200, and if I'm not sure that you're 100% confident either. So,
yeah, most definitely, mate. It was a full learning experience for me.
Yeah, but what it was for all of us, I think. What I was doing wasn't really helping anyone anyway. But I mean, I've seen you step up and not only give, for me, all you had to do was have a bit of a chuckle over the radio and I was fine, right? I've seen you give, the verbal get back into line, mates. Everything from the giggle to the verbal get back into lines. But I've also seen you kick people from the serve and ultimately kick them out of the club, and you close the Bathurst 200 back to just the club, whereas it was broader before. And those things are not easy things to do, I'm guessing.
Yeah, look, especially, and I've lost friends over the years. In the last 14 years, I've had mates that ran with us for 5 years, 6 years, but things went sour and we had to part ways. And it's the only way. I almost lost the group quite some years back when we were still on Xbox from just bickering inside the group and people that were making it hard for other people, and guys were not turning up because they didn't want to race with a particular person, and I didn't sort of know what was going on, and I sort of didn't have my finger on the pulse, and I got onto that and straightened that out and shifted the group across to a new game actually and started again. But but I've realised then that mates or no mates, there's a group. There's rules, and abide by the rules or sit out of the group. And I'm quite happy to race with those guys somewhere else at another time. They're just not welcome to race in FNRC for whatever reason. They're too hot-headed or whatever. But it's we've got to be strict because it's for the good of the other 65 guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, mate, I've got to say, I think it's a strong leadership quality. It's really admirable because, leadership is not all about those nice things. Sometimes you get a bit of thanks and a bit of sparing praise that comes your way, but you also,
Yeah, which is all appreciated.
yeah, but you also get those really tough jobs, the behind the scenes work that goes in, the preparation, the planning, the no doubt thousands of conversations and hand holding sessions that go on, putting out spot fires and all the rest of it. But all,
Yeah,
all those really tough moments, when you have to pull people into line as well, and they're not, as you're saying, mate, they're not strangers either. They're mates or mates of mates that and that carries baggage, and I think you handle these situations really well, Shero. I mean, you obviously you've got some maturity and some good humour in those circumstances, and with leadership like that, I think you've built a really strong club and one that's going to continue to flourish. So I hope in your reflective moments when you get the chance to sit back and look at these things, you sort of appreciate what you've built there a little, mate.
yeah, mate. Thank you for the kind words. But yeah, there have been some really trying times, and we've had our stalkers over the years too. I got to tell you, there are some guys that do some strange things but yeah, I've always got admin behind me, and I try and be as diplomatic as I can when I remove someone, and if they buck about it, I just say, look, it's a unanimous decision. There's admin have all made the decision, and I'm sorry, that's the way it is. And if they're not thick-skinned enough to wear that and move on, then they're the ones with the issue, not us. So, but yeah, it's sometimes it's not nice. It's sort of getting rid of one of your mates, but as I say, to keep the group running and enjoy Friday nights, and it creates a somber mood for me too when
Yeah.
somebody starts bickering in the server or something and having a go at somebody, and it drops the mood entirely for everybody, and it takes the fun out of it for me too, and that's not what I'm here for. And if we can make one person laugh for the night, mate, we've done our job. You know what I mean? That's what we're here for, is to have a bit of fun and have a laugh and enjoy ourselves and
Yeah,
forget about the
exactly.
rubbish.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Like I said, I think you handle it really well. And often it's just a bit of a laugh and poking fun at yourself or something that's going on that sort of, diffuses the whole thing. And I think you do that really well. But one thing I did want to talk about was some of the positive impact. And it's not just FNRC. I want to speak more broadly as well. I mean, there's some. Well, let's look at FNRC for example. There's a wide and eclectic range of people in there.
Yeah,
Um,
most definitely.
yeah, old and young. Although, if I'm not mistaken, it's all male, and it's not a rule that I'm aware of. But it's all blokes at this stage.
Yeah, definitely. We have had some females back in the Xbox days.
Yeah,
10 years ago, we had quite a few girls, a couple of girls from Canada and mostly overseas, but I don't think we've had any Aussie girls, to tell you the truth, or Kiwi girls. But
yeah,
we have had females through the group, but at the moment, yeah, it's predominantly male. And as you say, it's an eclectic mix, mate. We've had doctors, we've had lawyers, we've still got a chemist at the moment, we've had
yeah,
mechanics, we've got unemployed people, we've got old age pensioners,
yeah.
we've got from all walks of life that probably would never associate with each other, except for the fact that Friday nights comes around and they all jump on and they're all mates again.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So you've got this big group of people here that come together, a couple of times a week to share a common interest and
Yeah.
have some
Yep.
friendly competition, share a few laughs along the way. I mean, that's a really positive thing, right? Have you seen some of the positive impacts on some of the people involved in your time?
Oh yeah, most definitely. And the other thing is that the guys are all there to help each other as well. So whether it be just for advice with racing or whether it be advice with love life, everybody's got an opinion. And I've seen over the years many people say, "Can somebody help me with this?" And 10 people have jumped in and said, "Well, yeah." And I've seen PC parts being sent backwards and forwards. And
Yeah,
in fact, I just received not long ago from Tim Orwima.
yeah,
He sent me a clutch when I purchased a new set of pedals, and it saved me a Mozza about $250 Australian or something.
yeah.
And that's inside the group. That sort of thing goes on all the time with the guys helping each other out too.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, I've been involved in a bunch of clubs or groups or whatever you want to call them in my life, whether it be for sport, recreational, or even just at work, and as I get a little older, I've actually sort of taken the time to reflect on the positives that these groups have that I hadn't really appreciated before, and perhaps even impacts that I wasn't aware of. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I had a break in the first couple of months of this year and over Christmas from the Monday Night Lights broadcasting I was doing with RRTV, and I've been off the podcast train for a bit longer than that. But, in that time that I've been away, and even since these things are starting to roll back on again, I've had nothing but positives from people saying the most surprising things about what they took from those things. And there's, the great group of regulars around the Top Split Twitch stream, and from personal experience in all those things, I can say that I think these little connecting points that bring people together, have far broader influences or than I sort of ever really appreciated. And I look at the FNRC and some of the positive impacts that it has had on me, and I can only think of that being magnified by a factor of many, with all the folk in, there's 60-something people in there at the moment, and you've seen plenty of evidence of that, and I was really taken aback by a comment made by Craig the other day, Major, as he's known on the servers. I put up a post about, the Monday Night Lights broadcast going back up, and he responded so positively with that. And at one point he said how those broadcasts got him into iRacing, helped him connect with others and feel less isolated when he was caring for his father. And I can't tell you how much that struck and humbled me to think that our little broadcast of a Skippy race could reach someone in that way. And can I say, mate, I reckon what you're doing has had similar effects, and probably on a bigger and deeper scale. I'm sure of it,
Yeah, most definitely. And look, it really is easy to take stuff for granted and not take the time to reflect and look at what it's done. But I've had similar stories from people, including one of our admin, Gary Cousins.
Yeah.
He said to me, Shero, I was ready to walk away from iRacing, mate. He said, you really saved me from just dropping it and not bothering. He said, Friday night's the thing I look forward to, and It's great fun, and it's a renewed interest in iRacing for me. And mate, I'm glad you. And I mentioned it to Gary before I brought it over to iRacing. I'd come over to iRacing. It was racing for laser racing with Richo and Mikey Hammond and Brian Borg and the boys, and I was enjoying myself because I didn't have to do anything. I could just hop in and drive for them.
Yeah.
But I was still missing that Friday night camaraderie. And I said to Gary, I'm really thinking about just dropping out of laser and focusing on FNRC. And I'd mentioned it to him prior, and he'd said, mate, I think it's a fantastic idea. Go, if you do it, let me know, and I'm in straight away. And he was sort of one of the deciding factors, I think, that pushed me to say, yeah, I'm going to drop out of laser and definitely do it. And he was probably the first FNRC iRacing member that we brought over.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, mate. And I think things like FNRC are really important, not just in iRacing, but in general. I mean, people are inherently social animals, as my wife will tell you.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
I struggle to admit that to myself and try to ignore it a bit sometimes, but finding the right way to connect with people is important to their overall health and well-being, I think. And
most definitely, mental health is a big issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think beyond the great fun of racing and laughs along the way, I think you're doing a great thing for a great bunch of people, mate. So congratulations on that.
Mate, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Now, on to something a little lighter. I've come to know that one of your off-track pursuits is musical. I was really surprised the other day.
Music.
Yeah, mate. We had a conversation the other day, and you knocked something up really good, and you made a bit light of it when you said it through to me, the chipmunk sounding thing.
But yeah.
Yeah, but the thing was, you knocked something out that was really good in what seemed like a matter of moments. You've been obviously been doing music for quite a while, I'd suggest.
Yeah, it's funny, but I can't read a note. I've never ever learnt music. I picked up guitar when I was about 15 and got a mate that played in a band and got him to teach me a few chords, and that was sort of it. I started from there, and just most of the stuff I do, it's all I know, probably a dozen basic chords and a few majors and sevenths and minors, and I just sort of get myself by like that. And I play a bit of keyboard and harmonica. My dad played harmonica a bit, so he taught me a little bit of that. But you can't read a note of music. If you put a music book in front of me and said play that, I'd be like, well, I have no idea what that is. That's just gibberish to me. So, but I do love music, and I started off. I was working up in the mid north coast with a guy called Ramsey Collins.
Yeah.
Who was part of a group called Four Chairs, No Waiting. They were an a cappella group back in the late 80s. Lovely old guy, and
Yeah.
worked with a gentleman called Rusty Bertha and John Fleming, and those two guys later left Four Chairs, No Waiting and became the Scared Weird Little Guys who tour all over the world now.
Yeah, I've seen them. Not
yeah,
live, but
well,
I've seen their stuff.
Yeah, well, not that I ever worked with Rusty or John, but
Yeah.
Ramsey was one of the Four Chairs No Waiting a cappella group, and he left there and took off up to Port Macquarie in the mid-north coast, and I was living there at the time and met him, and he formed an entertainment company up there called the Travelling Leftovers, and he figured he was a bit of a leftover, and a fantastic guy, great voice, and could write a comedy skit. He was a full variety performer, did a little bit of acting. He's over his life, he did a lot of bit parts in shows like Division 4 and Matlock Police and all those old Melbourne Crawford production shows.
Yeah.
And so he was a character and a half, and I worked for him, and we used to do, he had a male stripper named Brian, by the way, which wasn't me, but anyway.
Of course, mate, sure. Just between
Brian,
you and
Brian,
me, mate.
Yeah, exactly. And Brian used to do his gigs on Friday nights and go and strip for the girls' parties, and it was my job to write the song, which was to the theme of "Hey Big Spender" was the dance he used to do.
Of course it was, yeah.
Yeah, and I used to have probably an hour, mate, to sit down, and they'd give me all the details and information about the girl, and I'd write the song out for him to go, or filk the song for him to go and perform on Friday nights. So it got pretty easy to start with. I used to have a book there with lines that rhymed. That I when I couldn't find something that rhymed with a certain word, I'd just grab the book and go through the book and look for lines until I found one that rhymed, that fitted with the rest of the lyrics, and throw that in. But after about 3 or 4 months, it was just sort of second nature. It became much easier, and I'd just sit down on Friday afternoon and slap the song together, and off Brian would go and perform it on Friday night.
I don't know what sort of pressure that brings, the dude going off and doing that to one of your songs, but certainly something unique anyway.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I've had some unique jobs in my life, that's for sure. I sold ladies' lingerie at one stage.
Oh, there are tougher jobs, I can imagine.
Yeah. It was a hard job. Somebody had to do it.
That's right. On the musical theme, you've done up a theme song for FNRC that I've played on stream a few times. I think it captures the spirit of the group, which is a bit of fun. Yeah, you were going to polish that one up. Have you finished that one yet?
No, I've been playing it to death every time my 2 grandchildren are here, and I want my grandkids, one's 3 and one's 5. I've got a little girl 3 and a little boy 5, and I want them to do the chorus for me. And it's quite good because he's actually, little Keith, he's been walking around the house even when the song's not playing, and all I hear is FNRC, and I think, oh, it's working, it's getting stuck in his head. And once I've got it stuck there, and he can carry a melody quite well for a 5-year-old,
nice.
I want them to do the chorus for me, and I'll lay down a few separate tracks and re-record it properly. But yeah, what you've got's the unplugged single track version, but it was a bit of fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And ultimately, fun is the name of the game when it comes to FNRC. But
exactly,
that's it. Now, people should know. Now, we've been talking about FNRC, and that was the name of the game today. The group at the moment, it's limited numbers. It's not currently recruiting. The gates open periodically when numbers change, as I understand it, and it's invite only based on member recommendations. Now, I don't say all this to put people off. I'm actually doing so because I want to encourage people. Some of the things that we've talked about today already, I'm trying to encourage people to seek out or even start up a group of their own because of all the benefits we've been talking about today, whether it be in iRacing or any other pursuit, connecting.
Yeah, definitely.
Connecting with like-minded people is a fantastic thing to do. It could be anything. I mean, lately I've been looking into FPV, first person view, I think it stands for, quadcopter racing. And the number of people online that I've seen who've said that it's the most amazing community. It's equaled only perhaps by those in other communities and other activities who say the same thing about theirs.
Yeah.
It's just about connecting with folks and having a good time, wouldn't you say, Sharon?
Exactly right, mate. That's the crux of it all, is that we're all doing something that we enjoy doing, but we're sharing that with someone else. And
Yep.
it's great to do something you enjoy, but it's pretty boring sometimes on your own. Something great happens and you turn to look at someone and laugh at them, or share that moment, and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It's hollow. That's why FNRC was born, because I wanted to share my enjoyment racing online with other people that did the same thing. And look, I get as much out of it as anybody else does, mate. There's no doubt about that. The reason I put in the hours each week and the effort is so that I've got some guys to race with. And my wife said to me a lot of times, when there's been years, mate, when things were really tough, and she said, "Why are you doing this? This is just, it's too much work." And it's like, look, if I get things back on track, I have a good time, I enjoy myself. So the effort's there, and iRacing's been a little harder because there's a lot more money got to go into it. But the fact that we've got some sponsors behind, and we've also had a lot of donations. Actually, can I mention some guys that have given me some donations, mate, please?
Yeah.
I'd like to say thanks to Paul Wood, who's known as Woodsy, Sam Catakazinos, Sammy Bobby, Mick Gray, known as Trickster, Matt Woodward, Big Woody, who's come a long way with his VR lately, and Troy McMahon, Vibo Marnie, Luke Witten, Stobie, Kev Willman, Joe Baldwin, just affectionately known as Joe. And I've had substantial donations from Pete Matson, known as Pete, as we all know
Good old
and
Pete.
love. Tim Awima from Venom Racing, the Golden Stig, who sponsors our Last Man Standing sessions on Sunday, and Håkon Grebstad, substantial donations. Thank you very much, guys. And you guys are the only reason that we're still going, because the cost of running FNRC per annum is just not something one person could put up. There's no way.
Exactly right. So thank you to those guys from me as well. We certainly enjoy our racing on a Friday night and a Saturday night, and along with Shero and his team, those guys make that possible for us. So now, before I let you go, mate, is there anything you'd like to say in closing, or anyone else you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'd just really like to say thank you to Luke Sloyan, Jeff Dean, Gary Cousins, Chris Foster for doing our scores. Gary Cousins is just a legend on Excel and spreadsheets, mate. He is a champion. Without him, we'd be lost with fuel calculations and things like that. With the logistics behind the scenes, he is amazing. Paul Nichols, again, our sponsor from Central Coast Subaru, who puts up the money for all the servers and prizes and stuff for the Bathurst 200. Without those guys, mate, it would not happen as it does. It would be a far more amateur setup. I'd still be plodding away and doing what I can, but it would certainly be a way more amateur setup than what we have today.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks to those guys from us here as well. And thank you so much for joining me today, mate, and helping me kick my little podcast back off again. I'll say that you and FNRC were what gave me something of interest to sort of get my mind going and the ball rolling again. So thank you for that also, mate. And thank you again for joining me here at the Top Split.
Cheers, Alex. Thank you very much for having me, mate.
Well, folks, there you have it. How about Shero, eh? He's a character, all right. I can tell you there's a lot more to him behind the scenes as well. At least he strikes me as a real character who's done and been through a lot in his time, and he does it all with good grace and good humour. A pretty canny bloke too, by the looks, and certainly gives a lot to the FNRC community, and don't we all benefit tremendously from those efforts? Thank you again to Brian for making time to do the podcast with me today. Also for his ongoing efforts towards the Friday Night Race Club and the fantastic enjoyment that it provides. I think there are some really good messages in our chat today beyond the FNRC itself, and I was really pleased to be able to talk about them with him. As for what's going on in the Top Split world at the moment, the Monday Night Lights broadcasts are up and running again. There have been some changes though. The great Bernie Weemers has trusted me with the RTV commentary booth on a Monday night, And I am now finding out firsthand how skillful he is with trying to direct the show whilst doing the camera work and doing the play-by-play commentary all at the same time. Personally, I think I could use a few more sets of arms and at least one more set of eyes. Joining me in the commentary booth so far has been Tim Gorkrocher, who's been bringing some great knowledge to the team, and this week we'll see Tim Awima, also known as the Golden Stig, stepping up to plate for the upcoming few rounds. It's great to have a couple of Skippy regulars join me, trying to add some interest and the added enjoyment that these broadcasts, I think, bring to the racing community more broadly. It can be a little nerve-wracking, but it can be some fun at times as well. Thank you to everyone who has been tuning in and supporting the broadcasts. We do it for you guys, and your support is greatly appreciated. We're working hard to make it the best broadcast we possibly can, and I've got a few surprises in the works that I'm hoping to share in the upcoming weeks. Special thanks also to Bernie, not only for providing us with access to the RRTV platform, but for his tireless support of the ANZ iRacing community. His efforts, whilst often unheralded, are extensive and I know greatly appreciated by the broader racing community. As for me, in addition to the Monday Night Lights broadcast on RRTV, you can join me on the Top Split TV Twitch stream, where I stream as many of the Friday Night Race Club races on a Friday and Saturday night as I can. The Bathurst 200 on a Saturday night is a particular favourite, with the challenge of driving a different car each week around the beastly Mount Panorama being a really enjoyable one. I also do the artificial race stream during the week from time to time and put some of the more enjoyable races up on the Top Split YouTube channel as well. So head on over to Twitch and join us by searching for Top Split TV, all one word, or check out some of my previous races by searching YouTube for the Top Split. Those are all separate words in that case. All those links and details, of course, are at the topsplit.com website. If all else fails, you can find all the latest details there. Thank you finally to you, the listener, for joining me here today, and please make sure you check out some of the older episodes, as there are some really good ones in there that I'm proud to say are a pretty good listen. For now, though, I'm going to leave you with the Friday Night Race Club theme song, penned and performed by my guest today, Mr. Brian Sheridan. Shero will probably kill me for putting this one out there because it's still the unplugged version, you might say. And I know, as we spoke about today, he's been working on the more polished version, but I still think it's really fun and it represents what goes on a Friday night in the Friday Night Race Club. So until next time, I've been your host, Alex McKellar, and you've been listening to The Top Split. Ciao for now.
A Friday night is just for me, baby, I'm gonna have some fun. I walk into my man cave and I lock the door. I sit down, put my headset on, and the outside world is no more. Yeah, the power goes on and the lights go off, and I'm in my space. Ignition on, engine start, now I'm ready to race. FNRC, it's the place I wanna be. FNRC, that's the club for me. FNRC, you know it's number one. FNRC, Friday Night Race Club. Bunch of mates, I'll have a run. No aggro, no money, no fame, just glory and fun. Once the lights go green and we're in the race, I'm having so much fun, can't wipe that smile on my face. FNRC, it's the place I wanna be. FNRC, that's the club for me. club just for fun.